Those of you that have joined already, we'll just give 30 seconds or so for other people to join, and then we'll make a start. Okay, I'm going to make a start. So welcome everybody to today's product roadmap webinar. Today we're going to be focusing on a couple of key features that we've been developing and give you some insight as to how that has been going and what our next steps are. But before we get into that detail, I just want to go through some housekeeping so that you're supported throughout the session. So we'll be recording the session, and everybody that's registered for it will receive a copy by email. You're welcome to share that with colleagues in your network if you would like. You will be muted throughout the webinar, so if you do need assistance, please use the questions function, which is in the top right-hand panel. And do feel free to ask questions about the content of the webinar, again, using the questions function, which is in the top right-hand panel, and it's the one with a question mark noted on it. If we have time, we'll address a selection of these at the end of the session, and we'll address any common themes in our follow-up. Now, we have got a packed agenda today, which I'll go through with you now. So time may be against us to go through a Q&A, but we'll see how we get on. So in terms of what we're going to cover today, we'll open up with something a little bit different. We've got a Q&A on the activity log with Martin Wood, the product owner who's led the development on this piece. And he'll be talking with one of our customers, Don Wilkinson from Lifetime, who's been kind enough to join us today. After that, our head of implementation, Georgina Burton, will take you through where we've got to in getting the activity log or getting you ready for the activity log launch. I'll then spend some time to step through the wider roadmap, our progress, and let you know what's coming next, before finishing with a bit of a deep dive on our learner app, where we're at and what the plans are for it. So with that, I will hand on to Martin. Over to you.
Thank you, Dan. So yes, as Dan has said, I'm joined today by Don Wilkinson from Lifetime Training, one of the customers who's taken part in our early access for the activity log. And I'm going to run through some questions with him. But first of all, Don, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
I can. Morning, everybody. I'm Don Wilkinson. I'm Lifetime's Delivery Partnership Manager. I look after Aptem and all the associated processes that go along with our team of learning coaches working with our learners out in the field.
Excellent, thank you. So first question, bit of a two-parter. So obviously we met beforehand with early access to sort of show you a bit of a demo of the functionality. So what did you want, so what were you hoping for, and why did you join the early access for the activity log?
I think I'll start by saying being an early adopter of any new technology and any new feature in Aptem is always a privilege. So I was keen to put our name forward for that. Off the job, particularly, has been a hot topic within the industry for a fair few years. The opportunity to get our hands on something so, I will say, groundbreaking, something so different to the way we've done it previously, was very, very exciting. So we have a lot of manual processes, a lot of spreadsheets involved in our off-the-job capture. Activity log completely takes that away, puts the onus back onto the learner, which is really, really exciting.
Excellent, thank you. So we're a few months in. You've had access to the activity log since February. What's the sort of biggest impact, sort of positive change that you've seen from having it?
It's probably twofold what we were hoping to see. The first one being targeting something that isn't a huge problem, but it's a known issue around off the job, which was that timeliness and quality of the off the job activity evidence that we're getting from our learners. And the second part of that is saving time for our coaches, where we see a lot of our coaches working with the learner to help them upload that off-the-job evidence, whereas we'd like them to be focusing on that high-value teaching and give learners something really easy to log their off-the-job hours. And that has definitely been the biggest positive since we've moved across certain programs to using activity log. The feedback from the learner base has been overwhelmingly positive around ease of use right from the get-go, And we've been using it around about 4.5, 5 months now. So we're just starting to see some reliable trend data come through. And we are seeing learners stay on track and coaches validating that off the job activity in a much more timely way. So there's been a huge reduction in that retrospective adding of hours, which I won't go into too much detail. We all know from an authenticity point of view, from an accuracy point of view, and a pace of getting it done is just 3 huge ticks for lifetime.
Fantastic. That's what we'd hoped would be the case. Yeah, so fantastic news. So Georgina will be going through this in a bit more detail, preparing and everything else for the general availability. But if you could give guys on the watching the webinar today some tips or a tip that they could use for adopting the activity log.
It is relatively simple to gear up. So what we found straight away is, and a huge shout out to Martin and your team around the training that was provided through Aptem and on the help desk is really exceptional. And that was what we used to inform our coaches of what was going to happen through the early adopter program. Over time, and I know there'll be more detail on this, and it's definitely coming soon, as that wider scale reporting and validation becomes available, I would encourage everybody to just pay particular attention to moving from one method of off-the-job capture, sort of your original legacy version, into activity log. It's relatively pain-free, I think, what's going to come, but it is something we want to pay particular attention to make sure that we keep that accuracy of our data. And the other one, just around the adoption piece with our coaches. I think it's fair to say, Martin, I was a little bit nervous how the coaches would react to us taking away the ability of them to log off the job hours for learners to support them with that function. I am really pleased to say that I was completely wrong. It has been really well received by our coaches. They never wanted to do it. It was just a fact of life given the processes we had. So I would put everybody's mind at rest there. If Lifetime is an example, our coaches are really excited for activity log. I get bombarded with questions over when it's coming.
Excellent. So we do have lots of plans for improving the activity log, and Georgina will show you some of those in her segment in a moment. But obviously, you've touched on amalgamating the data with the old evidence data and everything else. We'll be streamlining. We're moving those workflows out and into activity log. We're bringing in more config. And, you know, I'm hoping we'll be able to put a little bit of AI sparkle in there at some point as well. So what are you most excited about in the future of activity log?
I mean, you phrase it so eloquently. I think a bit of AI sparkle. I think AI is so prevalent in the agenda across our industry right now. It's something that by default people want to know, well, where is it being used in this bit? Where's it being used in that bit? We already have a number of agents that support with the creation of ideas. They're more ideation agents to, you know, this is the setting, this is the learner profile, what's a good off-the-job activity for this module? If within activity log further down the line, if that AI sparkle was something around that ideation piece or around evaluating that evidence and making a suggestion of where it might fit in the KSB, that is something that's been talked about and is very exciting.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, we're looking at hopefully a guide rather than a thing that would, you know, literally write it for you, and the same thing at the other end. So because we never want AI marking its own homework, we want it to support that human in the loop. Absolutely. Excellent. Right. Well, I think that's all we've got time for. Thank you so much, Dom, for joining us. That was really insightful. I'm going to be handing over to Georgina, who will be taking you all through how what you can expect in general availability, how you can prepare, and a little glimpse at what's in the future. Georgina, it's over to you. But you're on mute.
I remembered my camera and not my mute. Sorry about that. Thanks a lot, Martin, and thanks a lot, Dom. It's great to hear about what activity log feels like in practice, because it's not just a theoretical improvement, it's a real one that's already making a difference to providers on our early adopters program. But what I want to do now is show you what it actually looks like in Aptem, and then give you some practical steps to sort of think about now to make sure you're ready when this becomes general availability in the summer. So if I just jump into Aptem, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with looking at the learner view and what it actually looks like for a learner logging an activity. And learners can log activity directly from the learning plan. And they get to an activity log screen where they can choose the type of activity, when that activity took place, and give that activity a good description. The idea here is that learners should be logging activity as it happens, not just when they submit evidence. So they may well do multiple activity logs for a single component or a single activity or a single piece of evidence upload to show you what they did and when. They can choose the date they log the activity and the time spent, and really should be encouraged to log these activities in short chunks in the moment. Because they've logged it from the learning plan activity itself, it will automatically link to that activity and give them the opportunity to go in and, again, like I say, log multiple types of activity. The form itself is quite simple, and I'll show you later how that can also be configured in some future iteration. And they can choose the date and hours that the activity actually took place. So it's not just about logging activity today, but maybe logging activity that they've done over the last few days or weeks towards that component. Learners, of course, also have the ability to log activity straight from the activity log panel, which is in their sidebar. And that will also show all activity previously logged against that program. And they can see there if the activity has been submitted, accepted, or even referred, which we'll look at slightly later in the demonstration. So they see a full view of all the activity they submitted against the different components that they've logged it against. And they can log activity straight from this page as well. And we'll get to the same form that you saw in the previous screen. The only difference of the logging activity from this view rather than the main view is that the activity will actually need to be selected. The learning plan activity will need to be selected from a drop-down list, which is fully searchable. Whereas if they do it directly from the learning plan, that learning plan activity box will be pre-selected and pre-filled for them. So it's just simply a case of choosing the right activity to log against if you're doing it in this view, straight from the activity log pane rather than from the learning plan. And we can see there that new submitted activity. Now is switch to a tutor view and look to see what this activity log looks like from a tutor view. And this is all accessed from the new activity log menu in their sidebar. The first thing we'll notice on this screen is the top call to actions. And the first one I want to highlight is this one on the right-hand side, which will show you all your learners who haven't logged activity in the last 28 days. So this is really important because it means you can proactively check those learners and find out why they haven't logged activity and get them back on track. The next panel on the top left-hand side is the activities to review. And this will give you all your unverified activities for your learners that will display from the oldest to newest. And we can see there the type of activity, the full description, and the date and time, so that you can have the full ability to either accept or reject that activity. And once you accept a piece of evidence, an activity log evidence, it will then move on to the next learner. So you can work through that workflow learner by learner to approve all your activities, making it a very proactive way to go in and make sure all that evidence is approved without having to search through learning plans to find hours that have been logged against activity. Another thing you'll see on this activity log pane is a list of all your learners that have activity log switched on. And this is really useful maybe if I'm going into a review for Tracy and I want to find out all her accepted or submitted activity, see how she's doing with activity log and get everything up to date for a single learner, maybe just before a performance review or a meeting. What I want to do now is just show what it looks like if you need to return an activity. So maybe the activity and description isn't sufficient or isn't suitable, and it does give you the option to reject an activity log entry. But all objections must have a full reason for rejecting that activity, and that reason will be visible to the learner. So we can see here that I've given a reason why this is going to be rejected, and we can see there in the activity log view that that has clearly been rejected and sent back to Tracy to review. So if I jump back now into Tracy's view to see what that looks like, and I will have a notification that that activity has been rejected, but I can also see in my activity log view, I can see it's clearly been rejected. And if I go into that activity, I can see the reason the tutor's given me for rejection. So it's a clear, auditable reason why that is not acceptable. And I can then consider whether I want to change the description of the activity, change the hours, make any amendments, or even delete the activity if I decide it is actually correct that it's not acceptable. So it's putting the responsibility for logging activity firmly with the learner where it should sit. On this occasion, I'm just going to change the description and make it an acceptable description just for an example. And I'm then going to then resubmit and update the activity to show you that going through as resubmitted. And we can see now that activity has been resubmitted. And as a tutor, I will be able to now see that resubmitted activity, the reason I rejected it originally, and I'll be able to decide whether I now want to accept or decline that. And again, I don't have to accept that resubmitted activity. I could reject it again and give more feedback, or I could have the option to delete it, but hopefully this is now acceptable. What I want to show you now is the audit export, and I think this is one of the most exciting parts of activity log, because once you're ready to check your activity log or download and export, you can simply click the download export, and it will give you a CSV file showing you all the activity logged by that learner, the program it's been logged against, the hours, the type of activity, when it took place, the description of the activity, the learning plan component it was against, the date and time, and whether it was accepted, rejected, so the actual status, and if it has been rejected, what that reason was. So a fully auditable record immediately available. And then the final thing I want to show you is just how easy this is to set up in tenant settings. So basically, you configure the activity log within your tenant settings, and you can choose to enable it for one program or all your programs, and you can add programs to this as you go. So you absolutely remain in control of when it gets switched on from day one, which programs it's being switched on for, and when you want to move out and use it. When this goes live at general availability, once you switch a program on, all previous evidence level reporting will be moved into activity log, giving you that single auditable place for all your learning plan off the job activities to be recorded. So now we've seen that in action, I just want to draw your attention to sort of a few things to consider. So there are three things that really matter for activity log. You end up with a single structured place for learners to record their activity as it happens. You have a verification workflow that keeps tutors on top of submission, and an export that means audit preparation is no longer a project, it's a single button to press to get all those activities in one place. One thing to remember is evidence submission in the learning plan continues exactly as it is, and these become two separate workflows. So a learner can log activity as they are preparing that evidence, they can do multiple logs, and then they submit their evidence in the way they do normally. And the thing to remember as well is you stay fully in control of when each program moves to activity log. So you don't have to have it as a big bang change. You can do it as a gradual managed transition for your teams with you in complete control of that transmission. So what I want to just spend a few minutes out is thinking about what you need to do to get ready. And it is straightforward, like Dom said, but providers who have the smoothest rollout are the ones who do the groundwork first. And this isn't a long list of things to do, and none of it requires technical expertise, but we feel it will make a genuine difference to how quickly your learners and tutors can adopt to the new workflow. And you don't have to wait until you turn it on. Some of these actions you can do now. So I'd say first thing, before you enable activity log, spend time on your components. Learners are going to log activity against them. And in activity log, they'll need to select the names if they're not logging directly from the learning plan. So if the names are vague or outdated, learners may not know where to post their entries, and that could create additional noise for tutors. It's a quick fix, but an important one, to maybe go through your learning plan and make sure that your activity names make sense. Another thing you can do in preparation is define what a good log entry looks like for your organisation, to give learners and tutors a shared expectation before go live, and agree a turnaround time for verification with your tutors so their queue does not build up. And then when you enable, you could start with one program, pilot it, learn from it, and then scale with confidence. Or you could decide to enable for everyone so your tutors and learners have the benefit of the new activity log quicker. But the single most important message for learners at that point is a distinction between activity log and evidence upload. They're separate workflows, and learners need to understand that clearly from day one. They can log activity in real time to show work done towards submitting evidence, and they don't have to wait until evidence is submitted and ready to submit their hours. And one final thing to think about when you're getting ready is your OData reporting. So it's important not to overlook this last point. You need to plan a change window to update your reports to draw from the new activity log data source. And it will be a simple switch, but worth planning in advance rather than discovering after you've enabled. So general availability is going to be the foundation. And what you've seen is what's going to be available in general availability. But what's being built on top at the moment is genuinely exciting. The things on these slides aren't possibilities, they're confirmed items for the roadmaps to come very soon after launch. So first is going to be the configuration, and this is going to be expanded so that you can control which hours types are available, set daily time limits, and allow file uploads with your activity activity log entries, giving you a genuinely tailored setup across your provision. Auto logging will also arrive for school modules, placements, workshops, and Teams meetings, with draft entries created automatically for learners to simply review and confirm, removing one of the most common barriers to timely logging. All activity log data is going to be brought together in a single unified source, so your reporting and dashboards finally reflect the complete picture, which, as Don mentioned, is so important. And we'll have a digital signed declaration to allow learners and tutors to formally sign off the job records together, which is a significant step forward for compliance and funding assurance. The earlier you adopt, the more familiar your team will be when these enhancements land, and the more influence you have over what gets prioritised next. So I just want to spend a couple of minutes showing you the designs for some of the program level configuration, because seeing this in context makes it much easier to accept the level of control you're going to have. What you're looking at here is the ability to create distinct configuration sets, so you can have different setups for different curriculum areas, different levels, or different learner cohorts. One organisation-wide setting is not always the right answer, and this is designed with this in mind. So each configuration set will give you control over exactly how how the learner logging form behaves for that program. You choose which hour types are available, which categories you'll accept, and you can set time limits per entry, both minimum and maximum. This last point is worth dwelling on. For providers who struggled with learners logging unrealistically large blocks of hours in one entry, this will give you a direct way to manage that, setting a sensible time limit per day, and the system enforces it for you. And once you've created your configuration sets, you then assign them to the relevant programs. So a level 2 program might have a simpler, more guided setup, while a professional degree apprenticeship might have a broader range of categories and fewer restrictions. The whole thing is fully configurable and managed in one place with the kind of control that providers have been asking for, and this is coming. So my key takeaways is don't wait for good general availability to start getting ready. Providers who hit the ground running are the ones who are preparing now. Tidy up your components, set your expectations with tutors and learners, and have a conversation with your teams and your CSM about readiness. And then by the time general availability arrives in the very near future, you'll not be starting from scratch, you'll be starting from ahead. Your learners are already accumulating off the job hours. Soon evidencing them will be the easy part. So that's all I've got to say on activity log. I am now going to hand over to Dan to talk a little bit more about other exciting roadmap initiatives.
Thank you, Georgina. That was really good. So I'll start by introducing myself, as I forgot to do that at the beginning of the webinar. So I'm Dan Tiffany. I'm the head of product at Aptem. Some really good questions being posted in the chat. We're not going to get to a full Q&A at the end of the session, but a lot of the things that have been asked in the chat will be answered probably through FAQs. If they're not already in the FAQs, we will add them in. In terms of timeline for general availability, we're targeting August for general availability for the activity log. So I wanted to talk to you more generally about other things that we've been working on and our plans for the rest of the year, really, and probably into 2027 as well. I forgot what year it was then. So I've talked about this before, but everything that we do revolves around 3 strategic pillars. And I want to be clear about what I'm about to talk through. It's not a list where we finish one thing before starting the next. A lot of the work that we do is running in parallel. Some of it is foundational, the architectural groundwork that has to be in place to enable everything else. But overall, the picture is, I hope you see this, one of progress on several fronts at once. So let me tackle each pillar in turn. So for learner engagement as a catalyst, the thinking here is fairly simple. If we get the learner experience right, a lot of good things follow off the back of that. We've got a clear example of this with the employer learning plan access, which went live last week. Employers can now see their apprentices' learning plan, what they're working towards and how they're progressing, which pulls the employer properly into that tripartite relationship rather than leaving them on the outside. Sitting alongside this is the next generation learning plans. And this isn't a small piece of work for us, next gen learning plans. We've been talking about it for a while. It's a reimagining of what this part of the platform looks like. It's not a tidy up, so it's a significant amount of work for us. It is at the heart of the platform. It's the central record of everything that a learner has planned, has completed, maps to KSBs of the standard that they're working on. We're actively in development on this now, and we're starting with a new admin center feature that will sit at the core of everything we do. It will have all of the main features feeding off it. Learning plans will be part of that, but so are reviews, which are currently in the exploring phase, and we're about ready to start development on that as well. And forms, which will cover off how forms are managed, created, etc. The aim is to have a single consistent foundation that makes the whole experience clearer and more engaging for everyone who touches it. In addition to that, under this pillar, we've also got the Learner app, which I'm going to go into more detail on in a second. The second pillar focuses on scalable and extensible technology, the foundations that let us move faster and connect to a wider ecosystem. The big one here is around data access modernization, which is currently in development. This is about modernizing the underlying layer that gets data in and out of Aptem, making it faster, more robust, and easier to feed into your own reporting and BI tools. It's not the flashiest item that's on the roadmap, but it is the kind of foundational work that everything else benefits from. Also under this pillar, we've got past functional skills integration. Functional skills delivery in Aptem runs through numerous integration partners, and we've added PASS to that list, which means that as providers, you can plug straight in if you already use PASS, or if you don't, it gives you a wider choice of options, I guess. And then the third pillar is around efficiency-driven solutions. This is really designed to take friction out of the compliance work that you might have to do that could create additional effort. The first thing that's on here and is on here every single year is ILR changes for 26-27. That incorporates funding rule changes as well. We're in the process of completing that work. Some of that went out to early access last week. We did that as a safeguard, if you like, to ensure that everything is working, or we can prove everything's working before general release, which will come in August. Additionally, we're also reacting to the apprenticeship units changes that came out a couple of months ago, and we are making some changes around managing the components of a standard in that space. So when you look across the 3 pillars, you'll see that we're trying to achieve a deliberate balance. Things that are live or ready to land right now, like employer access and the PASS integration, and things we're actively building alongside them that maybe have a longer tail. And there's always more to come. There's a plan, or we think we have a plan behind it. We know where we're heading, but it's important that you continue to contribute to that. If you're an existing customer, please do keep sharing your thoughts through the Aptem community. It's where we gather input on the things that we're thinking about, the things we're considering. And we genuinely do listen to the feedback that we receive. It helps us in, number one, shaping the future of a product, but number two, making decisions around whether or not this really should be the next priority for us to pick up. There's a ton more that I haven't talked about in terms of activity that we're working on. If you'd like a fuller picture, head over to our website where there's an up-to-date view of the roadmap with more detail and a little bit of a deeper dive in some areas that are perhaps a bit further out in terms of our thinking. So let's move on to the Learner app. If you were with us at Aspire back in May, you'll have seen the very first iteration of our Learner mobile app. At that point, it did one job: to get a learner to log their off-the-job activity through the activity log, which was integrated into the app. That was a deliberate step by us. We wanted to get something real in front of you so that we could gauge your reaction and listen to any feedback that you had. And you gave us plenty to listen to. So the workshop that we ran generated a huge amount of feedback, and a lot of it pointed straight at what we should do next. It also shaped a bigger decision, which was, rather than ship that first version to live, we've chosen to hold that back, or hold the first version of the app back until it's richer and until we're confident that it will drive real engagement with learners. The last thing we want to do is to launch this and for it only to be semi-useful. It needs to hit several marks. So where are we focused? The first thing is in document upload. Logging an activity is one thing, but learners often need to back up their off-the-job learning with supporting documentation. So we're building the ability to upload documents as part of that process. Second, notifications. So keeping the learner aware of anything that's outstanding, an activity that needs attention, for example, and prompts them at the right moment. And third, we've introduced an Ava integration. So Ava is our virtual assistant, the same one that you might know from the desktop version of Aptem, where a learner can ask a question and get the kind of answer they'd expect from their tutor, but only now in their pocket. Alongside those three main feature advancements, we're also adding some quality of life improvements based on the feedback that we received. So there'll be more information around the learning plan. There'll be a clear view of progress against the apprenticeship, which we feel are small, helpful pointers that show a learner how they're doing. The aim is to create a more rounded experience where a learner can do things on their phone that they'd normally do on the desktop version. Now, these aren't future ideas on a wish list. These aren't designs that I've put in front of you. This is actually a working front end. So we've not sat on the feedback that we received at the Aspire conference. We've actually moved forward and physically developed a new app front end that incorporates these features. We do have some integration work that needs to take place now, and that's been sized over the course of the next couple of weeks. So very soon, I'd hope to be able to give you a firm indication of when you can expect this to land, and hopefully that is not too far in the future. So that's everything I wanted to cover today in terms of roadmap and an update on the mobile app. As I've said, we're out of time, so we can't take any questions. So I'll just move on to a couple of items which may be of interest to you. Upcoming webinars, we have an Ofsted inspection insights one for FE colleges with Kerry Boffey and Peter Nelson, both from Finn, and that is on Thursday, the 2nd of July. Please scan the QR code if you'd like to register. And finally, just to close off, I'd like to firstly thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us on our latest webinar. Do reach out if you've got any questions, either directly to us or through your customer success manager. And if you're not already a customer of Aptem, please scan the QR code and we'll be happy to set up a demo of our product for you. Thank you very much for your time.